Peace. What's good? How y'all doing? This is ZaZaAli. Today is Saturday, September 10th, 2022. I pray that this message reaches you all in the best of health, spirit, and mind. I am doing very well. Thank you. I've been wanting to do this subject, this presentation, the pineal gland, the seat of the soul, for a couple of weeks now. I've been mentioning it in videos. And in the initial idea, I was just going to sit down and, do a 30-minute talk. And then as I started really kind of putting something together to present, it turned into a much bigger conversation. And so it's probably going to end up being a 90-minute presentation. I have 26 slides plus an additional video. But I think that it's important to start having these sort of in-depth metaphysics conversations, so that we can have a space and a reference point to start focusing on, so that we can, focus beyond the confines of this world as this situation continues to get crazy. So again, this initially was a 30 to 45-minute video. And then I was like, no, there's a lot of this needs context right now, especially with what's happening in the world, and really starting to take, we've talked a lot, we've been talking forever about what the ancient cultures, ancient civilizations have done. Obviously, there's a modern, sort of spiritual movement where people are, taking universal laws and taking different spiritual concepts, Buddhism, African metaphysics, African spiritual concepts. Of course, you have the native and indigenous cultures. You have the precepts for Islam and for Christianity as we know them today. Both of those religions are rooted in African culture and in African theologies, just under a different sort of perspective, if you will. So I think it's important now for us to really start to move out of operating in the mainframe of this world and starting to really operate in the mainframe that we create for ourselves. And so I hope that the information that I present it keeps you engaged, and it keeps you, I try to use different mediums when I do these presentations, from book references to online articles, to videos, to, different audio, to try to keep you interested and engaged in the conversation, because I don't like talking at people. I like for my presentations, either in person or online, to be engaging and to make you curious and to make you think and to inspire a sort of inquisitive vibe. So hopefully all of this information, which for some people might be, it depends on what your vantage point is, but for me, these are the things that really make me feel inspired and invigorated to look within the capacity of the human being, which is obviously myself as well. But to really start to see that highest potential sort of showing, improving itself in all of the different ways that we search. And that's basically seeking God. So this is the pineal gland, the seat of the soul. This full video will be available at ZaZaAli.com. It will be available in my membership channel, which you are most certainly welcome to join. It will also be available on demand. And as a reminder, I'm going to be speaking in Brooklyn, Illuminati 2.0, A Divine New World Order, Saturday, September 24th from 6 to 9 p.m. There are tickets available directly at Nicholas Bookstore, or you can purchase them on my website, ZaZaAli.com. And this is what I'm going to talk about today. This is going to be bits and pieces of what I'm going to be talking about in Brooklyn and Atlanta, like really starting to, and in particular, from the divine feminine frequency, the divine feminine consciousness, the divine feminine awareness, the divine feminine timing, because that's critical right now. I'm gonna probably be doing some content based around that as well. But this is the level of, conversation and presentation and frequency that I'm going to be on in Brooklyn and in Atlanta as well. So I hope you guys come and check me out. It's going to be really exciting. And based on what's happening in the world, and I'm not even saying this to be dramatic or to sell tickets, but like based on what's happening in the world, and if you have been following my Kingdom Within web series on my website, or my Science as a Weapon series, you know that these are not normal times. And that, the scope of this situation we've been facing for the last 2.5 years is not over. So I'm trying to cultivate a frequency and a conversation with beings of light and people that are of like-minded consciousness and awareness, to sort of regenerate the energy and the spirit of God in you, to give you an extra level of support and an extra level of encouragement and an extra level of clarity. That's one of the things I feel like the Creator has blessed me with, the ability to articulate language in a way that helps people to get clarity. So that's what we're going to be on Saturday, September 24th in Brooklyn, New York. I'm super excited. Shout out to my sister Monique, and she has tickets there at the location. If you want to just walk in Nicholas Bookstore, you can buy your ticket on the spot, or you can purchase on my website, ZaZaAli.com. And then that following weekend on Saturday, October 1st, I will be speaking in Atlanta at Gallery 992. Same vibe, same topic, same frequency, but of course with the frequency of my folks in Atlanta, which I have so much love there. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing you guys. So you can get tickets on my website as well, ZaZaAli.com. All right, so why is this conversation, the pineal gland, the seat of the soul, important? Well, for one, we are currently in the midst of spiritual warfare. Spiritual focus and true knowledge of self is critical in this hour. The vibration on planet Earth in terms of humanity needs a sharp uptick in the love frequency, and this can only come as a result of heart-based living. Ignorance, lack of self-respect, attention-seeking, clown culture, herd mentality is permeating the airwaves. And that's the nicest way that I could say that. I didn't really, it sounds raw, but it's real. Like that's really, it's very interesting times that we're living in now. Knowledge of God is knowledge of self, and the dictates of this time will produce supreme beings from those with with eyes to see and ears to hear. And when I say from those with eyes to see and ears to hear, that means just because you may be conscious and aware on certain levels in terms of what's happening, right? Like saying, strongly saying no to the Jim Jones juice, but then not confronting your lower self or your lower nature or perpetual habits or, internal chaos, areas of your life that need to be cleaned up that you have been running from, self-sabotage type energy, fear-based frequency, those things. All of us have to confront that. This is the time for that. This is the microcosm of the macrocosm when it comes to spiritual warfare. Yeah, it's being played out at the highest levels of consciousness and power, for sure, 100%. And most of it is things that we aren't even aware of and things that we can't see from the vantage point of the wicked ones to the vantage point of the righteous wise ones. Most of the real power moves we'll never know about. But the individual spiritual warfare is what the last 2.5 years have been for. That was a mercy. That time frame was a mercy to people that were paying attention and whose third eye, which is, we're going to talk about the pineal gland today, and the decalcified pineal gland, whose third eye is operating at least a minimal level, we're able to spot this plan and this agenda coming, right? And then made good of the time, made good of their minds, made good of taking care of themselves and of preparing for whatever may come, right? Opposed to people with decalcified pineal glands or people who are not in touch and in alignment with source, people who have lost the connection, which is what this is all about when we talk about the pineal gland. Yes, we're talking about a gland within the brain, a physical gland within the brain, but we're also talking about a divine connector, so to speak, that connects us to a higher state of consciousness and awareness, or God, or the universe. So the microcosm is about us and how these things affect us, this world, and how connected or disconnected we are. And then the macrocosm is where we are in alignment as the collective consciousness is what's going to determine the war that's happening at the top of the pyramid. How much divine intervention, what type of divine intervention, what type of reprimanding is going to be done to the quote unquote powers that be, that's going to have to be determined and dictated by human consciousness. And we are so far from that right now. You know, yeah, oh, real quick before I forget, in terms of I totally forgot, I have the sticky note right in front of me. The Atlanta event, I have one of the brothers that's in the group, the membership group, sponsored a ticket for one person to attend the event. So if you'd like to come and maybe you can't afford a ticket, email me info@ZaZaAli.com. First come, first serve. And I will let you guys know. I'll make an announcement on my social media pages once the ticket has been receives a home. But yes, I do have a sponsored ticket for one person for the Atlanta event. And then last but not least, our that's more appropriate. Episode 4 of Headline News with ZaZaAli. I'm going to do it live tomorrow on YouTube. Friday I had a really bad chemtrail headache. Oh, I shouldn't say that. This part's going to be on YouTube. A white trail in the sky headache. And I know those headaches specifically because it takes like 2 days to get over them. And I had been, outside, and for the past 3 days at the tail end of the quote unquote heat wave, they sprayed so heavily in the skies. For like 3 days, the sky was just white every single day. I wake up, it's just white, not even cloudy, just white. So being out in that, it affects me in a physical way, and I can tell the symptoms specifically. And one of them is this really, really, really bad headache. And it doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen sometimes. And when it happens, I know exactly what it's from. So Friday wasn't the right spirit. And then I was thinking about doing it today, but I was like, no, I got to get this pineal gland video done today. So I think I'm going to do it live tomorrow, particularly because it's 9/11. So there's that frequency that's going to be in the air. Queen Elizabeth's plural passing. Obviously, that's a big news topic that I'd like to talk about. The Tiffany Haddish and Ariel Spears Fugazi. Pure, despicable that whole situation. I'd like to talk about that, as well as some other things, the California heat wave situation, and weather warfare is happening all over this planet, and the prophecies in the Bible playing out literally like nobody's business. And again, spiritual warfare. That's why this conversation is important, because we have within us the capabilities to be able to subvert and to be able to rise above any adversity that comes on our path. And that's right now in this modern time. And that's in a potential future where, the evil ones actually start to go on the offensive and trying to they've already been on the offensive for the last 2.5 years. But if their plan is successful, you know what I mean? They're going to be turning it up a few notches in the coming days. And so the name of the game is frequency, because, in the Bible, it talks about the Easter Passover and the mark that's on the door. I'm not quoting that, 100%, but that mark on the door that represented, passing over this particular house, that's frequency. That's symbolic language. And so this conversation and this subject matter and all of my content moving forward, that's why I put so much into the Kingdom Within web series. That's why I put so much into the Science as a Weapon series. I'm putting, information in my group membership all of the, sort of data and the stuff that they're hiding and the information you can't find readily online, the quote unquote conspiracy theory stuff. I have a whole section in my website now where I'm bringing that information to people that are interested in it. But we're at the time now where we are Daniel in the lion's den. And in order to supersede and overcome and thrive beyond this, we're going to have to turn our backs on the lions. That's the spiritual warfare. And so that's why this conversation is important. So I wanted to start with this real quick because, I think that our culture, Black culture in particular, in America and even beyond, a lot of the Christian elements of our culture kind of make fun of and ridicule different concepts of spirituality. So this is a video that Little Duval, the comedian, posted on his Instagram page, and I saved it because it just kind of reiterated something that I see continuously say. People have told me that I worship the devil because I do yoga, right? So I just want to play this video real quick for you guys, and then I'm going to make my point. So the mockery is that people actually use crystals, tourmaline, amethyst crystals, and all of the different rainbow of crystals that have healing powers. The mockery is, how could you possibly think that Black tourmaline or an amethyst crystal would actually be able to protect you from evil? And it's so unfortunate because, again, we should be seeking tools and methodologies in this hour to protect down on us. Because we think that God is something outside of self, we don't see our innate and intrinsic connection to the all. And when you understand the intrinsic connection to the all, then you are a little bit more open-minded to perceive that crystals that are formed in very precious environments within the earth may possibly have healing and protective capabilities. Now, one thing we know for sure is that the people of this world, the scientists of this world, the archaeologists of this world have a much more profound when it comes to understanding the science of crystals and understanding these sort of anomalies that are happening across our planet, and having a respect when it comes to the sort of geological elements of the planet.
Inside the crystal cave in Nica, Mexico, the heat and humidity are almost unbearable. Over 50 degrees Celsius, hot enough to kill a person in minutes. We wear special cooling suits to hopefully keep us from developing fatal heat stroke. Although I'm anxious to make the most of my limited time in here, the treacherous terrain and bulky suits make getting around a monumental task. Every step on these slippery shark's tooth crystals has to be carefully calculated. One slip on this terrain could spell disaster. Carrying an injured team member out of the far reaches of this place would be an almost impossible task. Tread carefully over the 500,000-year-old crystal formations. What makes the discovery of this one-of-a-kind geological wonder even more fascinating is that until the year 2000, this entire chamber was completely underwater. This cave is temporary. Once the mine is no longer viable, we're going to turn off the pumps, and this whole cavern will flood again, just like it was 500,000 years ago, totally lost to human eyes.
I think you should kind of get the point of the message I'm trying to convey, but just imagine the mentality of thinking that harnessing the energy and respecting the energy and channeling the energy of a vibrational um reference point, which is what a crystal is, an energetic reference point, like it's an energetic compass, if you will, right? And then you see caves like this, and they're all over the world, where you have these very intricate and fabulous and large beyond anything the scope of the mind can comprehend, um um spaces of these high energetic resonances. And when you talk about the climate and the environment that it takes to sort of shape and mold a crystal, just like the climate of the environment that it takes to shape and mold a diamond, just like the climate of the environment that it takes to shape and mold a human being, just like the climate and the environment that it takes to shape and mold a healthy and a healthy and vibrant plant or a child, right? So there's a repetitive pattern in everything in nature that speaks the language of God, and the language of God is frequency, and the language of God is energy. So for anyone, and this wasn't what particular little Duval was implying, or even this particular video was implying, but I have seen people imply that using crystals is devil worship, and relating it to different, minimizing it to different forms of certain, spirituality or whatever. But when you look at a cave like this and you see the tremendous respect that these guys that are navigating this environment are paying. Yeah, we're here with National Geographic, but that doesn't mean anything. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to really coming face to face with nature or with God, you got to have a right the right type of frequency to get up out of that spot, in one piece, right? So I just wanted to, I'm gonna, and these next couple of slides are going to be referencing this too. But my point is, because we are so disconnected from source, which is again what this conversation about the pineal gland and the connection to source or lack thereof is about, because we're so disconnected from God, we can't see God in all of God's creations. And anyone that has, really, like, they've got videos all over YouTube and on the internet of people who are using radiation detectors when they are in proximity to their Wi-Fi router or in proximity to their cell phone, and they have a certain crystal or a certain type of copper or a ELF blocker within the vicinity, and then they do a check without the crystals or the whatever the resource is in close proximity to the ELF reader, and then they do it when it's in close proximity. And it's verifiable on these meters that crystals, there are certain crystals and there are certain natural elements like copper that actually do block frequencies, negative ELF frequencies. So I don't know if you consider cell phone radiation a negative ELF frequency, but I most certainly do. This is a paper that was written by Dr. Maria Kuhlman, measuring the effect of crystals on the body's electromagnetic field. And she did research basically using Reiki techniques, using the Reiki techniques without specific crystals, and then using it with specific crystals, and then they measured the effect and the impact with and without. It says the graphics on figure 1 through 3, which is on the right hand side, provide evidence that the use of crystals on patients during Reiki healing really enhances the healing effect on the patient. The energy of the patients was closer to a straight line when crystals was used, which means they were better balanced energetically or healthier. There was also a visible effect on the healer observed as an increase of the energy measured on the top of their heads. Our previous measurements showed that the claim of the Reiki healers that they use universal energy to heal is right. Our our electric measurements showed increased energy on the top of the Reiki healers' heads, which can also be seen in figures 1 through 3. This means that the Reiki healers pull electric energies from the atmosphere through the top of their head, where the top opening of their donut-shaped EMF, which is on figure 4, then that energy is channeled through the hands of the Reiki healer to the patient. When crystals or emotional excitement increases the energy of the human nonlinear EMF or electromagnetic field, the whole donut-shaped nonlinear EMF starts to spin faster, and more electric energy from the atmosphere is pulled or sucked through the top of the head. So we're talking about channeling electricity and energy from crystals, channeling it, pulling it from the atmosphere within close proximity, or even within holding it, because that's what the experiment was, holding it in one hand and then not holding it at all. Holding a crystal, and now obviously to be a Reiki healer, you got to be operating on a certain frequency already, right? So you know, if you're doing this type of work and you got, you know, baby daddy issues and you mad at your boss, or you know, upset about something, or your frequency is off, you know, you won't be able to transmute the right type of energy to help people heal, right? So that goes without saying, but you have to say it. Because everybody wants to be a healer nowadays, but if you want to be a healer, you got to heal yourself first. That's step and stage number 1. So pulling down energy and channeling energy from crystals through the body, circulating it within the body, and then transferring and transmuting that energy into another human being. This is the technology. This is the reference point. This is the type of thinking that we're going to have to be using to move forward, because I don't know about you guys, but the hospital for me is not an option. And I'm only saying that publicly because it's relative to the conversation that we're having right now. That's not something that I'm going to be doing a lot of talking about, harping on publicly, because, you know, once you say it, you have the potential of activating that, right? So but I'm saying it because it's relative to this. I have no plans on, you know, I won't, let me not say it that way. I'm going to do everything within my power and seek out every resource and methodology of holistic healing and organic living in order to avoid every single aspect of this governmental, environmental, educational, medical, scientific, psychological, et cetera, reality, because it's out of control. So this is the type of focus, this is the type of perspective that we need to be channeling and focusing. And I'm doing these videos particularly for young women and for women. We need the healers to step forward. We need the maternal, you know, balanced minded, masculine and feminine attribute consciousness, ready to take responsibility, ready to take accountability. The world needs guidance in a major way. And I've always been a student and a lover of knowledge and information and wisdom. So I'm, you know, going to lengths to present this information to you guys and make it interesting, because I do want a light to go off in your head. I want you to have an aha moment. I want you to go look into this more. I want you to be interested and intrigued in crystals. I want you to look for your local crystal shop and go and start asking questions and start to, you know what I mean, being a little bit more conscientious about these deeper levels of reality. And just to, you know, conceptualize this, and I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but remember, your belief is what activates the power and the energy of the crystal. If you're a Reiki healer and you think you're just holding a rock, you think you're going to transmute any energy? Absolutely not. Because there's not a two-way channel of energy flowing. So the same way when you say a prayer, if you say a prayer in desperation versus saying a prayer embedded in faith and in full trust and awareness that the prayer is going to be received and the prayer is going to be answered, those are two completely different frequencies. those two prayers are going to have two completely different results. And especially if they're happening continuously night after night, it's like praying for, your son is doing stick ups and robberies and you steady praying for him, you know what I mean, out of desperation, but you know in your heart he's not changing, and you know in your heart he's living on the edge. Like, yeah, that's, you know, but mercy always, the God always keeps and protects and provides for our children. But I'm just saying, the belief and the intention and the focus on the crystal is what actually activates the power. This is totally out of, I don't know how this got here. That is not supposed to be there at all. I'm not sure what happened. Let me see. Wait, how did I get to the end of my presentation? Okay, I don't know what happened, but let me bring us back.
Okay. The lower self was to surrender to the higher self in order to enter the sacred space. This meant that the ego of the everyday world had to step aside, while the higher self connected with cosmic energy.
A vulture can fly, snake can't fly, but both have the same glands. System of life based on glands.
The glands were the most important features of the human being.
One of the most misunderstood functions of the human body today is our glandular or endocrine system. Glands secrete hormones that trigger reproduction. Fertility and procreation had high value in Egyptian ideology.
The ancients were very much in tune with how the energy systems in the body, or the chakras, as the East Indians would talk about them, were connected to the glands.
Ancient teachings speak of 7 energy centers in the body called chakras. Parallels occur between the concepts of chakras, or energy centers in the body, and our glands. It appears they are 2 ways of describing the same thing, through spirituality and through science. Ancient Egyptians had a holistic understanding of the significance of the glands and their central role in reproduction and in consciousness. If we can decode the symbols, we see that the sacredness of procreation is readily visible in ancient Egyptian art.
When you see a boy or a man, you see a kind of a bottle on his head. That is not a bottle or not a white crown symbolizing apparition, as my colleagues and the scholars say. No, this is a gland in the human body known as the thymus, located behind the lungs.
The thymus is most active when a baby is in utero. It continues to be active until puberty. Then it begins to shrink and is atrophied when we stop being fertile. It was a critical activator of consciousness.
The red crown is another, which is the womb, the placenta, the thymus and womb are connected for the cycle of life. When you see the double crown, the red crown is the womb and the placenta. The white crown is the thymus, which has its influence on the womb. That's the symbol of one of the glands.
In the early 1900s, alchemist Schwaller de Lubitz presented a work called The Temple of Man. It demonstrated that the architects of the Luxor temple used sacred geometry, which reflected the exact proportions of the human body. As in all Egyptian temples, the most sacred space was located at the back of the temple, the Holy of Holies, which corresponded to the pineal gland. When activated, the pineal gland is said to stimulate the evolution of higher states of consciousness. If the temples were metaphors of the human body, the pineal gland corresponded with the Holy of Holies.
So a couple of things real quick. He referenced, and we have to keep in context when we have, I don't want to make this a race thing or a cultural thing, but I do know because I have studied a lot of African scholars, we have to be careful when we have, you know, people who may not necessarily have been natives of Africa reinterpreting Kemetic, you know, sort of theologies. So in terms of the headpiece, he said that people think that it's, you know, his colleagues think that it's about the upper and lower Egypt, but it's actually about the thymus gland. Well, I have always heard that it was about upper and lower Egypt, and particularly Nubia, representing the sort of kingdom of the upper echelon, right? The mother culture of Kemet. So the upper and lower representation was not just of Egypt, it was about Nubia and Kemet. So I would beg to differ with him in terms of a few things, but I'm sharing this video because I think that he makes an excellent point about the thymus gland and about the visual representation of it, how it looks exactly like the headpiece of the you know, the headpiece of the pharaohs. So I think that that's an excellent point, and I don't think it's far-fetched considering how much of the infrastructure within the temples and whatnot, you know, talked about and referenced the third eye or another variation of the pineal gland. So just a little side note, you know, to put that in context. Your pineal gland is part of the endocrine system in your brain, and it plays an important role in regulating almost every function in your body, including reproduction, executive function, growth, body pressure, sensory and motor activity, function, appetite, and longevity. And I want to emphasize the endocrine system because the glyphosates, I hope I'm saying that right, I always say it wrong. A lot of the chemicals in the plastic, a lot of the chemicals and the hormones in the meat, a lot of the toxins in our air, a lot of the chemicals in our water is directly attacking the endocrine system. And this is a regulatory system that is governing a very large aspect of our physical bodies. The pineal gland sits in the epithalamus, located beneath the cerebral cortex, where the two hemispheres of the brain meet. It sits at the level of your third eye or sixth chakra. In addition to regulating physical and mental functions, the pineal gland is associated with perception, thought, morality, intuition, and even clairvoyance. In fact, French philosopher René Descartes believed that the pineal gland housed the soul. In some cultures, the pineal gland is believed to be a portal to higher dimensions. The pineal gland regulates your body's circadian rhythm daily and seasonally. Pinealocytes, or cells that make up the pineal gland, produce and regulate the secretion of melatonin. Serotonin is the precursor of melanin. Serotonin is acylated and then methylated to yield melatonin within the pineal gland. Melatonin is an indole analog and plays a vital role in circadian rhythm. It is the regulator of your sleep-wake cycles, menstrual cycles, pituitary gland functions. Melatonin also influences the secretion of neurotransmitters, endorphins, and hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and DHEA. Melatonin is associated with bone metabolism, weight loss, and cardiovascular health. It also acts as a powerful antioxidant by scavenging free radicals, immunomodulators, and anti-cancer agents. Unlike the rest of your brain, your pineal gland is not separated from the rest of the body by the blood-brain barrier. This is critical. It actually has one of the richest supplies of blood, so it is not protected from toxins that can build up in the body over time. Therefore, your pineal gland has the potential to clog or calcify. Fluoridated water is one of The main causes of pineal gland calcification. When your pineal gland calcifies, you are potentially at risk for a host of health concerns, including neurological diseases such as autism, depression, dementia, anxiety disorder, and Parkinson's disease. The common thread is that all of these diseases are associated with abnormal sleep patterns, which are directly linked to pineal gland dysfunction. And it is my estimation that a significant portion of our human population, maybe 90%, I'm not sure, but are currently operating under the restrictions of calcified pineal glands. And this is why these people have been able to do what they've been doing and why they are continuously doing it without any real intervention from the 8 billion people taking orders and under the rule of thumb, under what? Some people say 8,000 people that are actually in the quote unquote Illuminati. Then some people say the committee of 300. So, but anywhere between 300 and 8,000. How is it possible that they're ruling 8 billion people? This massive pine cone in Rome at the Vatican that represents the pineal gland, flanked by peacocks, which represent eternal life. The pineal gland is thought to be the seat of the soul, and it's one of the places where the human body produces DMT, the most potent psychedelic drug known to man.
How many dental fillings do you have? A new study suggests the fewer the better, but it has nothing to do with your oral hygiene. It's about how much mercury is in your blood. Most dental fillings are made of amalgam, which is a mixture of mercury, silver, tin, and copper. For years, researchers warned amalgam could increase mercury levels in the blood, but no studies were robust enough for experts to know for sure, until now. A new study from the University of Georgia reports mercury levels in 14,703 Americans. The researchers discovered people with more than 8 amalgam fillings had over twice as much mercury in their blood compared to people with no fillings. Researchers controlled for age, ethnicity, gender, smoking, and seafood to make sure the majority of mercury was from the fillings and not another source. However, the levels are still within the limit that the EPA and WHO consider safe, which according to the American Dental Association means no conclusions about the safety of dental amalgam should be drawn from this study. Still, one researcher from the study says people should be careful if you have other exposures, like if you eat fish every day. Those amounts can add up in the body. If the body absorbs too much mercury, it can damage your brain, heart, immune system, kidneys, and lungs. There are alternatives to amalgam fillings, but they're more expensive and may not last as long. Consult with a dentist before making any changes to your teeth.
So you talk about a decalcified pineal gland, which I'm going to build my case through the rest of these slides about why I believe that the pineal gland is sort of a focal point within the brain, a physical focal point, as well as a spiritual and vibrational focal point where we connect to God and where we connect to source energy. And so basically they have developed technology to disconnect the original operator and download and or upload, I should say, a new program and a new operating system. But the dental fillings aspect, I talked about that in the Black Matters Volume 1. This has been a long-term 100-year project with the intention, on a surface level, they say it's to protect the teeth, but when you get down to the nitty-gritty and talking about spiritual warfare, this has been an ongoing plan and project to decalcify the pineal gland or disconnect you from source. I'm going to play a video clip of Avatar in just a few slides showing sort of my metaphoric representation of what I think the pineal gland within the human being means in the bigger scheme of things in terms of the collective consciousness. And then it makes the whole crystal scene a lot more vivid, or in terms of what that could represent, right? Because if you think of these images of us being vibrational beings and sort of going in a high frequency, high vibrational space, and resonating with that frequency and aligning with that frequency, and then taking it back and, and passing it on, so to speak. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Targeting the pineal gland, long-term calcification process, metal dental fillings or mercury, which I talked about in scientific intervention, fluoride in toothpaste, water and dental industry, aluminum, barium, strontium in air, food, and water. We know what that's from. Lead in the piping systems, the frequency wars, the cell phone, smart meters, the cell towers, digital devices, power grids, and then of course the polymerase chain reaction, this fabulous test that you have all subjected yourself to over the last 2.5 years, which now all of a sudden, as I'm doing all of this research and looking into all of these different aspects of the brain and the, this whole genetic coding, I'm trying to understand this. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. So whether we're talking about the pineal gland, or whether we're talking about the Jim Jones juice, or whether we're talking about the different ways that they're trying to sneak this poison in on us, yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. And everywhere I turn, I keep seeing this polymerase chain reaction, which tells me they've been using this in old technology for a lot longer than what we think they have.